Good evening, members and friends of the Navy Supply Corps Foundation. I'm Captain Dan Pionk, your Master of Ceremonies for this evening. It is my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to our virtual celebration this evening. While it is a virtual birthday ball celebration, we try to work towards making this a realistic birthday ball as possible. Before we begin tonight's program, I'd like to briefly touch on a few housekeeping notes. First, we are recording tonight's event for future playback for those who could not attend this evening. Second, normally I'd ask you to turn off your cell phones and silence your devices, but all of you are on mute right now, at least for the formal program. You'll be unmuted for the breakouts that follow after the formal program. Third, I think most of you are Zoom experts by now. Last year this time, we all were scratching our heads, wondering what the heck was this new Zoom technology. Now it's part of our vocabulary. That said, tonight's program is best viewed in speaker view. That will allow you to best view the presentations and spotlight on the speakers. Fourth, if you haven't already done so, I would encourage you to have your first and last name displayed on your end of Zoom so your shipmates can recognize you, and this will also help with the breakout room assignments. Last, the chat feature is disabled for the formal program, but will be enabled during the breakout portion of the program. With that, we have the privilege tonight of celebrating the 226th birthday of the United States Navy Supply Corps, as well as the 51st anniversary of the Navy Supply Corps Foundation. Tonight, we have almost 400 participants representing 30 chapters from around the world celebrating the 226th birthday of the Navy Supply Corps. We have a great program tonight, complete with the customary traditions, guest speakers, a virtual cake cutting ceremony, and formal toast. After the formal program concludes, chapter breakout rooms will be available for more intimate engagement, moderated by the Foundation's chapter leadership. The Navy Supply Corps Foundation is proud to host tonight's event. Since its establishment in 1970, the Foundation has awarded over 2,500 scholarships, valued in excess of $6 million, supporting not only the dependents of and descendants of active, reserve, retired, and former supply corps officers, but also the dependents of supply and enlisted personnel. The Foundation also funds $10,000 memorial scholarships for the children of supply officers who have died while in active duty. Tonight, we celebrate more than 2 centuries of accomplished history in our wake, and together we continue our journey at flank speed to encounter an ever-evolving threat environment while maintaining freedoms of the seas. From replenishment at seas, first conducted by the USS Constitution in 1979, and later considered a secret weapon during World War II, to today's globally integrated supply chains, the Supply Corps remains the Navy's premier readiness enabler. Now is the time to celebrate our 226 years of being ready to serve, ready to sustain the fight, and ready for sea. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are very lucky to have Ranger Brody Young to serve as our guest speaker. Ranger Young will be formally introduced later in our program. At this time, I'd like to ask those who are able to please rise for the playing of our national anthem and remain standing for the invocation prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, as you see on your screen, we're displaying a small table, symbolic of a place of honor. It is set for one. The table is our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They're commonly called POWs or MIAs. We call them brothers and sisters. They are unable to be with us this evening, and so we remember them. The table set for one is small, symbolizing the fertility of one prisoner alone against his or her oppressors. Remember. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. Remember. The single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who keep the faith awaiting their return. Remember. The red ribbon tied prominently on the vase is reminiscent of the red ribbon worn upon the lapel and breast of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting of our missing. Remember. The candle is lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their unconquerable spirit. Remember. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. Remember. There is salt upon the bread plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. Remember. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us this evening. Remember. The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember. Remember all you who serve with them and call them comrades, who depended upon their might and aid and relied upon them. For surely they have not forsaken you. Remember. Remember until the day they come home. Remember. At this time, it is my honor and privilege to introduce Reverend Mike Lydon, Chairman of the Navy Supply Corps Foundation, for his welcome remarks. Admiral Lydon, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to this evening's celebration of the Supply Corps' 226th anniversary. And we've got quite a crowd from all the chapters around the world tonight. A special shout out to the gang out in Southwest Asia, Italy, and Hawaii. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to everybody for joining us. And a special welcome to our active duty and reserve personnel, including Rear Admirals Dion English, Kristen Fabry, Doug Noble, Matt Ott, and our latest flag select, Christian Aquavella. Thank you all for your continued service to our nation and for your contributions. The retired flag community is also well represented. Welcome to our former Chiefs of Supply Corps, Vice Admiral Keith Lippert, the 41st, Vice Admiral Dan McCarthy, 42nd, Rear Admiral Dan Stone, 43, and Rear Admiral John Ewing, 47th. We have a host of retired flags as well. Welcome to Rear Admirals Ray Barabee, Linda Bird, Sean Crean, Kathleen Dussault, Ernie Elliott, Vance Fry, Debbie Haven, Tom Lilly, Lee Singleton, Paul Verasto, Patty Wolf, and Mark Young. It's great to have all of you with us this evening. And finally, we have several members of our foundation's distinguished alumni in attendance. Welcome to Doug Brooks, Ed Cushkins, Bill Withrow, Bud Schiff, and Rear Admiral Doug Moore. So with the canceling of most of last year's 225th anniversary celebrations, we wanted to ensure that this year the Supply Corps family and friends had an opportunity to celebrate together, even if it has to be done virtually. I'll guarantee you one thing, this will be the least expensive Supply Corps ball that you ever attend. So tonight brings together Supply Corps Foundation members from our 37 chapters and beyond. It's a truly global celebration of our Supply Corps heritage and contributions. Thank you to everyone who helped make this event happen. And let me take a quick moment just to thank all of our volunteers around the world who every day make the foundation mission alive. And also to our donors and supporters. Thank you for your continued generosity that feeds and keeps us going. And our hope is that in 2022, we can once again celebrate in person. But until then, stay healthy and safe and enjoy the evening. And now we have a special message from the current and 49th Chief of Supply Corps, Rear Admiral Pete Stamatopoulos.
This is Rear Admiral Pete Stamatopoulos, 49th Chief of Supply Corps. I am proud to celebrate the Navy Supply Corps' 226th birthday ball with you. I want to thank the Foundation for hosting this virtual event and for their continued work and advocacy promoting our heritage and keeping us all connected. Last year's 225th birthday was a milestone that involved a year-long commemoration. And over a year later, a lot has changed. Our Navy Supply Corps is more powerful and vital than ever. Our Supply Corps history is the story of all of those who came before us and each of the more than 3,300 active and reserve component officers who currently wear the oak leaf and enable our Navy to remain ready for sea. Our legacy is one of innovation, versatility, adaptability, and forward thinking. Logistics in the 21st century is increasingly global, interconnected, and intensely competitive, which demands our very best leadership, engagement, and alignment from a whole-of-Navy approach. Our ability to anticipate change and chart new paths forward continues with Naval Sustainment Systems supply. This massive undertaking, led by our Supply Corps officers, will continue to transform our Navy. Our end-to-end supply chains are strategic platforms and remain as vital to a ready fleet today as they did back in 1795, when Tench Francis Jr. was charged with procuring public supplies and establishing the foundation of the dynamic community we have today. Navy leadership is relying heavily on our Supply Corps expertise to build and sustain Navy readiness. We are moving with a sense of urgency to orchestrate, integrate, and synchronize Navy's end-to-end supply chains, spanning from the tactical edge across the operational level of war and deep into the industrial base. In NSS Supply, our Supply Corps is leading and we are realizing results. Together, we are dissecting systems, processes, their interconnectivity, and leveraging the knowledge gained in order to ensure that the fleet is ready to fight tonight and fight tomorrow. I can report to you tonight that our Supply Corps integrity and presence is felt at every level throughout the Navy and the fleet. Naval forces cannot be effective in combat environments if they are not sustained, and sustainment is not possible without the energy, expertise, and creativity of Supply Corps officers. This celebration is a time to recognize everyone who has worn the oak leaf and contributed to the 226-year-old Supply Corps of today. Thanks to each of you for your service and happy 226th birthday to the U.S. Navy Supply Corps.
Thank you, Admiral Leiden, and thank you, Chief. And now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce tonight's guest speaker. Our keynote speaker, Brody Young, was a Utah State Ranger whose life changed the day he began his patrol on the early evening of November 19th, 2010. Shot 9 times during ambush, he had no pulse, no heartbeat, but miraculously survived and was in a coma for a month. Brody's inspirational story, 9 Miracles, centers around his strength, family, training, and perseverance. As a motivational speaker, Brody routinely speaks at the Department of Justice, FBI, and other service-oriented agencies about overcoming the ordinary and extraordinary challenges we all face. As the world navigates the recent pandemic, Brody's story sure inspires us all and reminds us the important role we play as past and present U.S. Navy Supply Corps officers. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ranger Brody Young.
Good evening, everyone. I think I can hear your applause. I know you're all muted, which makes it a little awkward, this silence. Thanks. I can see Dan. I really appreciate the opportunity to, I'm actually sitting in front of you. It may be a little deceiving. I am dressed up, but I'm wearing shorts, which is so great about a Zoom meeting. I was very touched by the anthem and humbled by the prayer that was shared. I grew up playing music. I was a percussionist, so I've marched in many parades, playing all the tunes or all the songs that were shared before the meeting started. And what a privilege it is. I applaud your work with the Navy, what you do to supply the Navy. It's so vital, and grateful for this. It's been interesting being able to get to know what the Navy Supply Corps does. You should be more known and more out there. It's a wonderful service, and I applaud that. Well, as was mentioned, I'm Brody Young. I reside in Moab, Utah. If you haven't been to Southeast Utah, it's very desert-like, red rock with a river meandering through it. Let me just share my screen here really quick. Looks like that worked. Great. Okay, awesome. So here's what it kind of looks like. You can see a lot of red rock. This is an unusual day. It's rainy outside, and we don't get much rain, maybe 12 inches a year. Anyway, it's a beautiful place to live. And before I was a ranger for the state of Utah, I was a professional river guide, which meant taking, a lot of people on some intense whitewater. That's a 33-foot long boat, 17 feet wide. There's 17 people there up front, and they're having the time of their life. Anyway, as a professional river guide, you really got to host and treat people to a good time. You could say I was a hippie turned cop, and I think hippies make the best cops. We love people, and we know the other side of the law, and we like people, and so that's what really got me a job as a river ranger. So I have some experience on the water, some really intense water. There's nothing like knowing you have people's lives in your hands. And while it is, an organized river trip, it is an expedition, and things happen. In fact, life is full of uncertainties, right? Growing up, I seemed to have a few limitations that I thought were really limiting to myself. One is I'm a redhead. I'm not sure how many redheads out there, but you redheads know, growing up as a redhead, well, let me just ask you all to think about. So I don't know about you females, but males, do you remember dating? Well, neither do I. Girls my age thought I was the precursor to the zombie apocalypse. It was just how it was. And not only was I a redhead, I thought I was really disadvantaged. Parent would put this kid in a tank top and short shorts on a hot summer sunny day. This is what I had to deal with, and life didn't get much better, right? In junior high, what we gain in confidence, we lose in dignity. So anyway, strike one, right? I'm also left-handed. I think there are some left-handeds out there. There's about 11% of us in the world. And we are at a disadvantage. For all you right-handed people, take note. From scissors to knives, cutting bread, to golf clubs, drum sets, you name it, power tools. Some things are just meant for right-handed people. Ever walking into a room and for you lefties and felt like this, right? We had no armrests. My penmanship is terrible. Thank goodness for modern technology. To me, this was a strike too, right? Lord love a lefty. There are, well, here's an internet fact, more than 2,500 left-handed people a year are killed from using products made for right-handed people. Not sure that's true, but I got it off the internet and it sounded pretty good. In fact, some scholars note that we may be one of the last unorganized minorities in society because we have no real identity or a real strength and power in numbers. Anyway, redheaded, left-handed, and I was chubby as a kid. What I'm trying to get at is it's about perspective. Ever felt like this on some days, like you're going down with the ship? At least the kids have life jackets on. It looks like Dad's holding a libation of some sort there, and they're just getting through the day. Have you ever felt like this on some days? Yeah, right. Hopefully that whoever's flying there has a second or a third or a fourth chute. But that picture in one picture, it describes really what I felt the night I was ambushed, shot 9 times, left out into the desert to die. And well, I just didn't want to die. It was never an option for me. Maybe I can explain some of that. On the night of November 19, 2010, I was on patrol, and my supervisor and I were on a shift, and we split up. We'd go and search out areas. We were on a special assignment to find alcohol and drugs for underage people. And so that night, we, as we've done many nights, we'd split up. We'd go and find these parties, and then we would jump back in one truck together and go contact these people and get IDs and take their drugs and alcohol. Well, on this night, we separated, and I went north of town, he went south, and I went to this first trailhead. It was Poison Spider Mesa Trailhead. It's a very difficult trail. We get a lot of search and rescues on it. And I was just rolling through the parking lot. I was down the Colorado River corridor and saw this lone car in the back of the parking lot, and I approached it, got out of my vehicle, leaving my truck door open. I walked around, with light in hand. This was about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. It's late November. It's right before Thanksgiving. And I see a lump in the back seat. And so I knocked on the window several times and woke up this gentleman, and he opened the door, and I said who I was and asked if he was okay. And then we talked about where he could go camp, because camping wasn't allowed in that parking lot. And this conversation was really calm and casual. And so I asked for a name and a date of birth. The name he gave me was Michael Orr. And if you remember back then, or if you remember the name, it's from the movie Blindside. Little did I know I was about to get blindsided. So I wrote this fake name down and date of birth, and then I asked him to wait there. And I walked back to my vehicle. And just as I was walking back to my vehicle, it's when I heard so just as I was turning to step into my truck, the shots rang out, and the first round hit my left arm. Now I'm left-handed, and shattered my humerus. Get the screen to change here. Shattered my left humerus. You can see the x-ray there. I hope everyone can see that. Immediately put me down in this, what was going to be a longer than average gunfight. The first round hit my arm. I turned away and I yelled out, "Oh, I've been shot." I knew it right away. And as I was turning away, I could just see more muzzle flash and him advancing on me. Well, several of those rounds, unfortunately, he was a great shot, and several of those rounds went up and inside of me. Now I wear a vest, a bullet-resistant vest, and I wore it religiously. You wear the uniform, you wear the vest. I was taught early on by some great supervisors to be on top of your game. Well, as I turned away and as he was advancing on me with the muzzle flash, several of those rounds, one went into the vertebrae. You can see in the middle of the x-ray, right into just the perfect spot in my vertebrae. And I believe that's when I went to the ground. He'd shot me in 3 rounds. It hit the vest, but it was such a close group knit on rounds that one of them broke through. The vest was actually going to be retired a few months later. I had worn its use out. And while I was on the ground and him standing over me shooting, all those rounds went up and inside of me and bounced around and caused some significant damage. You can see kind of a list here to my heart, small intestine, colon, right kidney, and on down the list. I had no idea I was this injured. All I knew was my arm didn't work and I needed to do what training taught me to do. So what did training teach me to do? I jumped up, which I think surprised this gentleman, and I went for cover. So I went to the back of my truck and he went to the front. Ouch, right. Here's an aerial view. I went to the back of my truck and he went sort of to the front. If you can imagine my door open, and we just started playing this cat and mouse game around my truck. I had no idea the extent of my injuries. All the pain was in my arm. And then I realized, Brody, you've got another hand. Your non-dominant hand, use it. And unfortunately, I had trained to use that hand to draw, to shoot, to reload. And this was a life and death situation, which required such, action. And so while I was back here at the back of my truck, he was in front of my open door. I used my right hand, I drew, and then I could see a silhouette through my windows. And so I began to fire at him. Now I was counting my rounds because I knew my reload was going to be somewhat unusual. And I'm counting those rounds in my head, and there were several things happening at this time. And I just want to reiterate the point of what you train, you do. When it hits the fan, you fall to the level of training. So there was no emotion, and I just did what I was trained to do. So my reload, I released the magazine. I'm still at the back bumper, and grabbed another magazine. I dropped the first magazine. I think I called myself an idiot or something like that. And then I grabbed the second magazine because we carry 2, and I put the gun between my knees and then put the magazine in there. Got a firm grip, and then I used the rear sight against my bumper to put a round into the chamber. And then I fired more rounds at him. Well, I'm sure he was not expecting this, and he retreated to where he was parked, and I moved up to my right rearview mirror. And then he raised his hands, and so I stopped shooting at him. Because we're taught when the threat stops threatening you, you stop going after the threat. So he said 3 words, "You got me." And then at that point, I began to lose consciousness. I think my adrenaline had run out, and I began to backpedal behind my truck and actually went unconscious, firing more rounds as I went unconscious. I think at that point he thought that I had died. So he jumped in his car and drove away and out of the parking lot, and actually drove downriver away from Moab into Canyonlands area. If you can imagine this area, it's vast and open, and there are no people that live out there. Except for the campers, random campers. And I think his intent was to go out there and disappear. So he leaves, and several minutes later, I wake up from being unconscious, and I'm lying on my back, and I realize no one knows I'm there. I never called out, and the only way for me to call out, I was wearing a handheld radio. I couldn't reach, well, I knew the handheld radio wouldn't work, and I unfortunately was shot in my right arm too, but just below the elbow, but fortunately it was a through and through, and I could still use that hand gratefully. And I realized I've got to get to my truck radio. That is the only way I'm going to be able to get out and to call for help. And so a really remarkable thing happened. I was laying there. I felt like concrete had been poured on me. And then I had these thoughts of my family pour into my head. It was my wife, Wendy, and my kids, 3 kids at the time who were 6 and 3 and 9 months. And seeing them, I wanted to grow old with them and be a part of their life. And that honestly gave me the strength and the courage to begin to roll. So with a gun in hand, I grabbed this arm. It was very light and looseless. And I apologize for being a little graphic here, but manipulating my arm felt like when you manipulate a bag of marbles, it wasn't coming with me. There was so much damage there. And so I would take it, slowly roll onto my stomach, take a breath, roll onto my back, take a breath. Eventually I made it to the rear bumper there and readjusted and rolled down the left side of my truck. Well, I got to the driver's side door of my truck, and I left that door open. Now I've always felt and had a strong premonition to leave that door open on any traffic stop, on anything I was doing. I never liked to be inside. I always felt, and credit to premonitions, to listening to your heart, listening to your mind. I left that door open because I wouldn't have been able to have opened it. So I sat up using my door and the floorboard and stuff, and reached in to grab the radio, which was really low inside the vehicle. And then I calmly thought about what I was going to say, because we were taught not to be sound crazy on the radio. And so I just said, Price, 2 Alpha 69. I've been shot. I'm at Poison Spider Trailhead. Please hurry. And then at that point, I laid my gun down and laid back down onto my back and waited for help to arrive. Now, I had never thought about what to do after your injury, how to treat some traumatic injury. It just never occurred. But what I did train to do was I'd read some research on how to breathe, how you can slow your vitals by controlling your breathing. And this would slow down things. I knew I felt weird inside and things just didn't feel right. I mean, I was losing a lot of blood at that moment internally, and I was getting really tight around my chest and really hard to breathe, and I could feel that squeeze. And so I just started focusing on my breath. Well, 10, 12 minutes later, 2 officers showed up. They cleared the scene, and then they approached me. They cleared the scene for the ambulance, and it comes in, and they begin to tear off all my clothes. Now, I was wearing my favorite things that day. It was in the cycle of laundry, my favorite Under Armour, just down to my socks and my boots, and they were cutting my clothes off to assess me. And my thought was, oh, I'm never getting these things back. And I was really disappointed by that. And perhaps it was a thought of confidence that I was going to live another day. But I have to tell you, I'd never trained that death was an option. I was so convinced that if I did all I could to prepare, that I wouldn't perish. It was just not an option. And so cutting off my clothes, and my supervisor, who I'd split up with that night, shows up, and they're asking me questions about where he is and where do you think he went and what did he look like, things like that. Well, I get thrown into the ambulance, and I get towards the hospital, which was some distance from town, about a 15-minute drive to get to a hospital that was honestly legally condemned. They just built a new hospital. It was going to open in January, and the hospital was running on fumes. Fortunately, the right personnel were there that night who had the ER doctor who had combat experience. He could assess things quickly. It was the stars just aligned. On my way to the hospital, my wife gets a call from a friend in town whose husband's a law enforcement, and she'd heard the traffic on the radio, and she said, "Wendy, you've got to get to the hospital right now." And Wendy's like, "Why?" And she says, "No one's told you." And she says, "No." And she says, "I'll call you back." And she hangs up on my wife. If you can imagine the shock of hearing that news and wondering what's going on. Well, immediately after she hung up, another supervisor of mine called and finally spit out, "You've got to get to the hospital, and Brody's been shot and it doesn't look good. You need to hurry." So if you can imagine, excuse me, the feelings and the emotion of a spouse who has got to take that 2-minute drive to the hospital. You can imagine she's amped up, and she jumps in the car, or actually she goes to the door and hears a knock at the door, and that friend who had the first friend who had called showed up at the door and said, "I'll watch the kids and you get over there." So she jumped in the car, and mid-trip she was overcome with this distinct feeling and an impression, and here's what it said. It said, "Brody's gonna be okay. He's going to live." And when she showed up to the hospital, she was as calm as can be. And the ER doctor there actually had to walked up to her and asked her if she really was the spouse. She was just so calm. The impression was so powerful that I was going to live, which was really comforting. Well, she gets in there, and I've gotten in there at that point, and I've spent 20 minutes there, and they're trying to stop bleeding. I've lost all my blood, and they're trying to get blood into me. Excuse me. They do what's called an IO, where they drill into your bone marrow to flush blood in there. It's kind of a last resort. They usually do it on unconscious people. I was conscious, and I started screaming. I thought they were literally sawing my leg off. It just hurt so bad. Here I am, shot 9 times, I'm laying on this table, no blood in me. I'm still conscious. I'm probably white as a ghost, and I'm screaming because of this flush of fluid. It hurt really bad, way worse than getting shot. So Wendy comes up and whispers in my ear and says, "Hey, Brody, you're finally going to get that helicopter ride that you always wanted." And I didn't respond, but it was sure great to hear her voice. So I was wheeled into the helicopter, which had landed at that point. Fortunately, there was one available. Moab's very rural. We're, 2 hours away from any, more advanced medical service. So I was going to get flown to Grand Junction, Colorado, to St. Mary's Hospital. Well, I was put on the chopper. I was put into an coma to help at least stabilize my vitals. And then I woke up a month later. It was the greatest month I've ever had, because I don't remember it. I was asleep. And supposedly I was told that I died several times and was brought back. And I like to think that I was still living. But it was a struggle those first few days. It was touch and go. Let me share the screen here. If you have a camera, if there's anything that I want you to get out of this is this statement right here. It's the epitome of never giving up. If people don't like you, that's okay. They can't whip you, but if they can whip you, they can't kill you. But if they do kill you, they can't eat you. But if they eat you, you don't have to taste good. Isn't that the epitome of never giving up? This guy was going to try and eat me that night, and I was not going to taste good. It was just never an option. So I spent there's, let's see, 12 tubes going in me and 10 coming out. When you lie in bed, you atrophy terribly. If you can imagine, after having the flu or something and getting over it, you're just kind of dragging in the following days trying to recover and get over it. I was lying there still for a month, and you just lose muscle. And I was a ghost of myself. And I had to learn how to do things again, simple things. It first started with trying to communicate. Now, I couldn't talk. I had a tracheostomy, which they're breathing for you. They're putting food in you. They're going to the bathroom for you. They're doing everything for you. They're bathing you, which honestly, I have no more shame. Having nurses bathe you is very uncomfortable, but hey, that's how it had to be. You just the first fortunate thing I got to do again was taste ice, little chips of ice. And while I couldn't communicate, the simple feeling of swallowing is such a simple pleasure we take for granted. It was taken from me, and I was really compelled to appreciate things. The first solid food I ordered in the hospital was salmon. Now, if you know hospital salmon, it's dry and overcooked, right? It was the greatest thing I'd ever tasted. They were worried I wouldn't be able to swallow it, but the taste, the salty sea, and just the texture, it was really, a blessing. Well, I had to work to get out of the hospital, and that included sitting up and laying down and taking a nap for several hours and whatnot. When I was unconscious, quickly I had two dreams. One dream, I was on a train, I was surrounded by family. It was so comforting because I was full of anxiety. Someone had tried to end me that night, and it's kind of frightening when your life is on the line. The other dream was I thought I was being used as a prop on a CSI show. I thought I was wheeled into this room with other patients, and they were setting up to shoot this scene, and I got really mad, and I didn't want to be a part of it. I thought this was how hospitals made their money, and I was pulling out tubes with my one good arm. I briefly remember waking up and seeing a nurse scolding me, and I thought I was going to get kicked out, and they weren't going to help me anymore. But that's what heavy narcotics do to you when you're intubated. I didn't want any part of it. So my process of getting back to normal again was quite the process. I did have a strong premonition about 10 months before this incident happened. I really felt prompted to get consistent with cardio, kind of the CrossFit that we experience today, the set-ups, push-ups, the running, and to make that consistency, you make a habit by replacing a habit. I mean, that's how we become better. The girth, the doctor said, because of the shape I was in, I was healthy, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I exercise, saved my life. Taking that many rounds was definitely life-threatening. We have this saying in the law enforcement world, perhaps in the military world, is what is your fit for duty, right? Form good habits, become their slaves. Only a habit can replace that habit. These are some of the clientele I work with occasionally. Sometimes applying minor discomfort and giving them some temporary housing. Every day you don't work out, someone else does. It's just a mindset. So when it hits the fan, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. This is another powerful quote that our chief quotes to us quite often. Sorry about the funny graphics. Here's a first smile. They just taking the tube out of my nose. And man, what a good feeling. That smile, after I did smile, I had to go take a nap. It was just exhausting. My first steps unassisted. I always had small nurses who were standing right beside me, and it was a very, very scary thing. Let me talk about some of the miracles. My heart was hit by a round. It went into the pericardial sac, and doctors described it like this. When it went in and up and in and went into my heart, the chamber was deflated and it pricked it, and then my heart inflated and pushed the bullet out, and it went in between my heart and esophagus. And then for some miraculous reason, a blood clot formed right at that spot, which obviously kept me alive. Another round is still in the my back, right in the vertebrae, right in between everything that's important in a vertebrae. I have another one in my lung and the lower left lobe, just in the right spot. One in my hip, and then just a ton of shrapnel that's all around my body. Most of that it's more harmful to go in and pull it out versus letting the body encapsulate it. The human body is a remarkable thing. It encapsulates foreign objects. It keeps them still. I still go annually to get checkups just to make sure those things haven't moved, because some of those rounds are in really vital areas, especially the one in the vertebrae. Let me share the screen again. A lot of things went right that night, and I'm certainly grateful for it. I wanted to talk about this really quick. Einstein said everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you can't help but get that reality. It can't be, or it can be no other way. This isn't philosophy, it's physics. I'm a musician, not professionally, but for fun. And I think all of you at least like music. There's certain music that really helps us feel good. Well, there's a frequency to that music. And, driving down the highway, doing a drum roll down the steering wheel, singing to the top of your lungs, hopefully with no one else in the vehicle with you. There is a frequency to that. And honestly, we all carry an energy around us that influences each other. We're all on the same team, or we're all here on the same team. So why not match the frequency of the reality you want? I really think that's a possibility. Let me just ask you this. How do you spend your energy at home, at work, with relationships? Someone important said, never let a problem to solve become more important than a person to love. A question I get a lot at the end of this is, how has it changed, the priorities in your life? Well, there's three things that are most important to me. It's my relationship with God and family and friends, and even my enemies. That is most paramount. If I can walk away from an arrest with a handshake, feel like I've done my job, or after, issuing someone a citation. It's just, people are more important than circumstances, or choices, bad choices that someone's made. I'm really convinced that each of us have the same value, and that value can't change no matter what we do. We each have the same value. So if we can treat people as better than what they seem, it works most often. It didn't work for me that night, but the choice that this person made, his name was Lance, was a culmination of many hundreds of choices beforehand that led him to a point where he thought it was okay to, try and take someone else's life. We only live once, right? We've heard that phrase. Well, it's false. We live every day. We only die once. So why not make the most of it? This man in Mexico kept getting robbed at it's like a auto shop. And so he decided to alter the frequency of his reality. Hope you can see that, but he shaved his dog to look like a lion. And you know what? He stopped getting robbed, at least for a little while. But he altered the frequency of his reality. Some of the pain and suffering that we cause in our own lives is all the chatter between the ears. And you know what? We created that. We also have the power to dispel it. You can only get bitter, or you can only get better. It's really our choice, in spite of all the things that are thrown at us. And life is not fair. I think we all know that, and none of us are immune to some of the struggles that we'll have in life. My goal is always to get back to this. I love to patrol on two wheels. I had to go through physical therapy for about a year, and then another year getting evaluated. I didn't know I was right up here, and right physically and mentally and socially. And I still get out and patrol. I'm an active full-time law enforcement officer. I'm a lieutenant for the region I live in, and it's awesome serving the people of Utah and other states that come in and around the world that come and enjoy Moab. It's world renowned, and so honestly, this is what it was all about for me. It's what got me to roll on the ground that night. This is my family. It's my wife's side of the family, and they're a little, but that's okay. They love me, and I love them, and we have our good and bad days. And to me, that's what it's all about. So I guess one of my last questions is, what is your motivation? What gets you going? This is what it was for me. We love the river. We love water. We love to spend all our time on it as much as we can. If you ever get down to Moab Way, you know, please holler. We love treating people to a good time. With that, I guess for a last takeaway is life is short. I was compelled to appreciate the simple things in life. How much greater are those who compel themselves to appreciate those things? How much better are they? Anyway, thank you again. And I sure appreciate your time tonight.
Hey, Brody. Hey, thank you very much. And thank you for your inspirational, motivational remarks. I know the entire audience has benefited from your being with us this evening. A remarkable story, and I simply can't imagine how how you got through that. Just remarkable. But as a small token of our sincere appreciation for speaking tonight and joining us, we'd like to present you with a few small gifts as a reminder of today's celebration or today's event. First, I'd like to present you with our book called Ready for Sea. It's the history of the U.S. Navy Supply Corps and provides a Supply Corps timeline and history since its inception. In addition, we got an engraved clock for you. And we also have a Navy Supply Corps Foundation challenge coin. But again, thank you, Brody, for honoring us tonight with your presence as our guest speaker in celebrating the 226th birthday of the Navy Supply Corps.
Thank you, Dan. I sure appreciate this.
Thank you, Brody. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'd like you to draw your attention to our magnificent birthday cakes. Normally, in keeping with tradition, the youngest and oldest, or should I say, most experienced Supply Corps officers present would assist in cutting of the cake. However, because we're virtual tonight, that won't be possible. Still, I hope wherever you are that you can enjoy your own cake cutting ceremony and continue the rich tradition of our Supply Corps. Happy 226th birthday, Navy Supply Corps. Ladies and gentlemen, please take a moment now to charge your glasses for the formal toasting and join us in a time-honored tradition of respect and goodwill. If able, please rise and remain standing for the formal toast.
I propose a toast to the Commander-in-Chief, the 46th President of the United States, the Honorable Joe Biden. To the President.
To the President.
I propose a toast to our allies who have joined with the United States in the pursuit of peace and prosperity throughout the world. To our allies and partners.
To our allies and partners.
Yeah.
I propose a toast to those that serve on the ground at home and abroad, to the United States Army.
To the United States Army.
Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a toast to the few, the proud, the United States Marine Corps. To the United States Marine Corps.
Good evening. This is Captain Brian Anderson, President of the San Diego Supply Corps Foundation, coming to you from the tower of Commander, Naval Air Forces Pacific, in front of the city of San Diego and the USS Midway. I'd like to propose a toast to the world's most powerful Navy that supports and defends national security and freedom and democracy throughout the world. To the United States Navy.
To the United States Navy.
States Naval Reserve. To the United States Naval Reserve.
I propose a toast to those who serve in the air that protect our homeland and forward deployed forces from enemy aggression. To the United States Air Force.
The United States Air Force.
I propose a toast to those that have safeguarded our nation's maritime borders and saved those in peril. To the United States Coast Guard.
Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a toast to our shipmates standing the watch.
Our shipmates standing the watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a toast to our teammates who selflessly respond in times of crisis, illness, and disaster, to our first responders and healthcare workers.
To our first responders and healthcare workers.
I propose a toast to those who remain behind and provide strength and inspiration to all who serve in the armed forces, to our families.
To our families.
I propose a toast to those who deliver sustained global logistics capabilities to the Navy and Joint Warfighter, to the Supply Corps.
To the Supply Corps. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. I want to thank you for joining us tonight for celebrating the 226th birthday of the United States Navy Supply Corps. Before we conclude the formal portion of the program, I'd like to recognize those who made this event possible. First, Captain Allison Cameron, the Foundation Chapter Relations Chair, the Foundation staff, Dina McMaster, Tara Neville, Cindy Inglett, and finally the chapter leaders and members who participated in the planning of this virtual event, as well as many of the videos seen tonight. Thank you very much. And finally, I'd like to say thank you again to our terrific guest speaker, Ranger Brody Young. Brody, thank you again for joining us tonight. This concludes our formal program. Shortly, everyone will automatically be put into breakout rooms based on your chapter affiliation. Please note that you will be able to move to different chapter breakouts if you desire. We've also identified moderators for each chapter breakout, but there's no formal agenda or no formal program for the breakouts. Finally, for those of you who register without a chapter affiliation, you'll all be placed in a breakout, and then once you are there, you can choose which, if any, breakouts you'd like to choose. Again, please enjoy the rest of your evening, and happy birthday, United States Navy Supply Corps. We want to end the formal event on a festive note, so shortly, the music, Semper Fidelis, will play. After the second stanza and the drum roll begins, you'll automatically be placed into your breakout rooms based on your chapter affiliation. Please enjoy yourselves, and thank you again for attending this 226th Supply Corps birthday virtual event. Stay well and stay safe.